back to Business Players Live. And today I'm with a friend of mine from Miami. He's a business owner and he's got lots of experience, like many, many years. He's gonna tell us all about it, okay? But he's done a lot of things, okay? So my friend's name is Hagen Ruff, right, Hagen?
You can say it any way you want. Ruff, the German pronunciation, in the US, Hagen Ruff works.
Okay.
It's really Hagen for those people who know me.
Yeah, so it's German, so hang tight with us. So this guy, he's amazing. Okay, so first of all, he's an expert in workflows. He's worked with many different companies. He's owned many companies himself, and he's also an engineer. Super talented and smart guy. Okay, like you want to talk about engineer stuff, this is your guy. And he has developed, he and his team, he's got an amazing team, wind turbine, which it's super aesthetic and it will probably change the world. Okay, and he lives with his family in beautiful Miami. He's got a beautiful family. And that's how I met him. I was traveling to Miami and I was able to see the action. Well, not the action because that day we couldn't see I'm honest, we couldn't see the turbine because that day we couldn't, but I saw the turbine. The turbine is amazing. And, I was dying. I was dying to have my friend Hagen today. So, and he's going to tell us about his amazing story. But welcome, Hagen, man. Thank you so much, bro, to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Jose. Appreciate it. You actually did see the wind turbine. You just didn't see it spinning that day, remember?
Yeah.
You should have seen it today. We had quite a bit of winds down there. I just got back from that site, and it was spinning quite a bit today.
Nice. Dude, I missed that. But, I mean, it was just a splendid just seeing it. And he showed us all the workshop and all the things. It was an amazing experience. And Hagen, tell us how you're doing today, my friend.
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. So you want me to dive right into the project? I mean, obviously you set the bar pretty high of what I'm doing and what I've been doing. So I can dive into the project. I can talk about myself a little bit, about my background. So you tell me what you prefer.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I got it all here figured out, my friend. Don't worry. So let's start with you telling us about you and your amazing story. How do you started in business and as even as an engineer, from the beginning?
Sure. So before we dive into Javawind, a little background about myself. I grew up in Germany in the southwestern town of Stuttgart. I graduated in Germany in mechanical engineering with a master's. Started with a big five consulting firm. It was called Accenture. In fact, at the time, it was still called Anderson Consulting. And so I got onto international projects. And eventually I ended up in New York, joining a company that hired me in Hong Kong for management consulting, especially in the SAP field. And it was back in the mid 90s. So I basically was planning to be in the US for about a 6 to 12 months project. And now, what is it now? I guess 27 years later, I'm still here. It's just how life goes, so.
Yeah.
But it wasn't planned from the very beginning. It was just an opportunity. I took a project initially, and out of a project went my own company, and then out of my own company went the next business. And so things just evolved from there. And now I'm basically, here with family, with 5 children. And it is life has taken its course, basically. So in terms of my engineering background, I didn't always work as an engineer. My first company in the US was in the software business, software and management consulting. And we were at the right place at the right time. It was the late 90s. We set up a business with a focus on business intelligence, which basically is software that analyzes large transactional systems and gives basically the users some more analytical value out of it. We dove right into that, and 5 years later, the company was grown to 250 people, about 24 million in revenue, and we
24 million.
24 million annual revenue, correct. And so we got acquired by a Nasdaq listed company. So we joined into a larger corporation basically. And then after my earnout was done in 2008, I went back to my engineering passion. I always had like a lot of interest for energy technologies, mostly for things that were like a little bit edgy, that were out there. And I read up even in my early years a lot about Nikola Tesla, and I was very inspired by what he's been doing. And so I did connect with people all around the world. In fact, I put quite a bit of money out of the proceeds of selling my company into research, and I funded projects in the U.S. Basically in 3 locations in the U.S. We got a location in Berlin, Germany, one in southern Germany, and then we also had a lab in Adelaide, Australia. So we had quite a few project teams researching those a little bit more fringe technology projects, and we put a website up of what this could do if it ever actually gets from a development stage to lab experiments into like a scalable product. We didn't have enough funding to really get it to a scalable product, and so at some point this wind turbine opportunity came around. We were tasked by a friend of mine in Japan, and that was basically after Fukushima shut down all the nuclear reactors in Japan in 2014 basically. And he tasked us with basically a research project. What are the smaller sort of on-site vertical axis wind turbines in the market that are reliable, that are sort of in the 20 to 25 kilowatt range, and that I could recommend. So we did a study, and there was just nothing that's certified, that's reliable, that's proven in that class. I mean, basically it's vertical axis is kind of tricky to begin with. The regular wind turbines are just like horizontal axis propellers. It wasn't very much preferred in Japan. I mean, obviously they could get noisy. They kill birds, and they're just like more intimidating. And it's more of a utilitarian product, but not something that people want to be close to and work close to and live close to. And so we decided at the time, let's just develop our own wind turbine. So we got together with a few partners. I put my own money into it as well. So we're self-funded. We don't have any external debt. It's all equity partners funded. And so we embarked on this project in 2014. And we thought we could basically develop that in 3 years with $3 million. And it's taken more than double the amount of money and more than double the amount of time. So it just we hit a few snags. We had to basically reiterate a couple of design issues. And one of the lessons learned is it's not like software where you can overnight implement some changes and rerun it and fix some bugs as you go. If you have to redesign something on a physical product of that size, I mean, it's still a small wind turbine, but you saw it's 100 feet tall.
Oh yeah.
To retrofit parts, to have things manufactured. I mean, it could take you back 6 to 9 months to basically retest everything as a system after making changes. And so that it costs us a lot more time than we had thought. But now we have a product that people do like. I mean, they call us. We're not completely certified yet. We passed all the certification testing, but we still have to get through the manufacturing quality assurance. We're still looking for the right manufacturing partners. We had some hiccups during COVID with one of the partners that makes the carbon composites for us. But overall, we're on track to hopefully get into market in about 9 to 12 months from now. So that's the plan.
Man,
and by the way, the product, you've seen the product obviously live, but there's little video clips about it on Javawind.com, which is I guess you can put that in the comments later on, how to click on that.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, we're gonna put everything so people can see and check out Jawawind's website and everything. And I can share the screen too. So later, when we get to the company stuff,
pull up the clip. Awesome.
I'll pull up the clip, and I got here the picture of the one that I visited. So that would be awesome to put it out there so people know.
Right.
This is amazing, guys. Like, you wouldn't believe. Like, it's not the same, of course, seeing it in a picture than being there. But yeah, no, it was amazing, and all the things that really like comprehend what it really is, the wind turbine, their wind turbine. It's a lot, it's a lot of engineering and product development and testing and all the things he like Hagen was describing. Like, I was able to see it, and it's great. It's beautiful. It's a piece of art too. It's not just a wind turbine like you're used to seeing. Like it looks fantastic. In fact, he was telling us the story of, well, many stories of people that they thought it was like an alien device type of thing, right, Hagen?
Yeah, we in the early stages when we put like the blades up, and people couldn't really figure out what that thing is because it wasn't spinning at the time. We're just basically putting the structural components together, and people drove by, they stopped and say, well, this looks like a UFO antenna basically, and there were all kinds of speculation what it is, but it's definitely sort of a head turner. I mean, we had a lot of people lining up around that site and asking what it is and be curious, and so it's definitely turned a lot of heads and raised a lot of questions what it is. But I think the whole thought about the aesthetics was that small wind is obviously by definition close to where people live and where people work, and the classical propellers, they're doing a great job in like agriculture, where you like in the countryside and you do on-site generation. People are not very worried about aesthetics, but if you go into even like industrial areas where people work, or office buildings, or like industrial parks, or like remote settlements, warehouses, even in those sites, people don't want to look at something they don't really like. They don't like to look at, and so was driving the demand in Japan at the time. They specifically wanted a vertical axis wind turbine that is aesthetically pleasing, and we just couldn't find one on the market, and that led us to basically develop what we have.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, man. The design is great, and so, dude, what made you like decide to focus on what you're doing today, Hagen? Because you've done a lot of things in your life, and you have a lot of experience in many other things that are not related necessarily to sustainable energy and all this amazing stuff that you're doing now. What made you decide to focus on this now?
Well, I mean, to focus on the wind turbine, it was kind of like a bit of a recovery from putting a lot of money into research on more speculative technologies, which by the way, I don't regret that I've funded that research. And, I mean, you wouldn't believe how controversial some of that research is, basically, where you look into stuff that Nikola Tesla 100 years ago was speculating, and people get, I mean, basically mean about if you even like think about, challenging any of the laws of physics or expanding them. And, they're, you're attracting critics, you're attracting trolls. It's just, it's a pretty ugly, field, but I'm still actually excited about the so what I'm seeing around the world, that it's continuing that research, and that there's actually some progress in some of those projects that I see, and I may actually at some point go back into funding some of those myself. So, but at this juncture, I just needed something more tangible, and that demand in Japan was clearly there, and we wanted to fulfill it, and again, it was supposed to be a three-year stint. It just happened to take a lot longer. So that's how I ended up in the wind business. I learned pretty much the wind business from scratch, and it has a lot of nuances. I mean, I'm a solar investor myself. I own a solar installation at a school in Massachusetts, but wind is a little more tricky than solar. I mean, the solar, you can get the hang of it, and sort of the whole the business aspects of that pretty quickly, and the production side and the weather issues. But with wind, it's very tricky, and it's sort of the structural side of it, but also the power output and how location dependent that is. And sometimes you move a wind turbine like a mile away, and you get less, you get dramatically less or more output, depends on what that location looks like. So wind is very tricky. I mean, basically the power goes up by the cube of wind speed. And also the quality of wind, especially for small wind turbine where you're close to the ground, where you don't want the turbulent air to lower your energy, in the wind. So there's just a lot of tricks that I had to learn from scratch about wind energy. And I'm not a super expert, but I think if I look around, there is not that many super experts in wind out there, basically, especially in small wind, which is it used to be a sort of a kind of a niche industry where, again, it's a very different business model to large utility scale wind. It's basically sold directly to consumers. It can feed off-grid installations, just the stuff we talked about when you were here, versus big wind is basically, it's utility. It's dependent on a grid feed. It often the energy gets transported hundreds or thousands of miles away somewhere else. Where we're in a business where an individual or a small business can buy that wind turbine to satisfy their power demand, which again, very different business model.
Yeah, it's the future, and I think that, like you said, there's not a lot of experts and stuff, because it's, even though it's been for a while, like people know about wind turbines, it hasn't been exploited, right? Like, what do you think about that? Like, it hasn't been really
Yeah,
into
it's true. Since small wind has been more of a niche industry, there aren't many experts out there you can rely on, and everybody has different opinions. But in terms of sort of the total the off-grid type of movement, where you see more and more, I guess, questions and interest in off-grid installations. I mean, we get contacted by people who are thinking about off-grids around the world, basically, and on islands and in remote locations, and basically they want to supplement in those areas where it makes sense, of course, with good winds, their solar and battery operated installations, and sort of the combination of solar, wind, and battery backup for a microgrid. That's a big trend, and there's been a lot of interest, and it's been increasing over the last few years. So I think eventually a lot of our business will be into off-grid installations, into basically areas where there's no grid connection at all, or where people want to be independent of the grid, or would it just go into rural areas where just the utilities don't supply power at a reasonable cost. And so that's what we're basically catering for.
Yeah. No, you guys are gonna do it, man. Like, you're gonna do it, and you're gonna be able to make it like very like producible, and that's gonna happen. If you guys,
it will eventually happen. Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but it will eventually happen. Absolutely.
oh yeah, you guys are super close. Yeah. If you guys would see what I saw, you will be like, wow, yeah, like, we want to support this venture, because it's gonna change the world. Okay, it's gonna be amazing. Yeah. Hagen, when did you knew that you wanted to do this? Like, and like, was this something that you always wanted to do?
In terms of the wind business, no, not at all. I mean, if you had asked me, before we started this whole thing, that I would become one of the experts in small wind, and how those things are designed and made and certified, and I mean, I would have said, you must be dreaming. This is not something I'm gonna it just happened, though. Again, there was a demand out there. We pulled a team together of the experts we could find, and we designed it. And again, it wasn't meant to be that long. It was meant to be a short stint, and then I could possibly go back to those more speculative technologies that are super controversial, basically, which eventually I will probably go back into. But that just happened, and at this juncture, we just have to get in the market, because we have 2 machines out there running. People like the way it looks. People are interested in it, so we got to bring it to market.
Yeah,
it's not obviously, it's not a super cheap product where you just say, hey, we're undercutting the cost of solar, which has dropped dramatically over the last 7 years. Solar has dropped dramatically everywhere in the world. So it's basically for niche markets where you have good winds, where solar doesn't produce what you need, or you may not have the space for solar. Or basically northern climates where you have long winters, where solar is not going to produce what you need, and you want to supplement that with on-site wind. Utility scale wind, but with on-site wind, and that's where we come in, basically.
Right, but it could be something that in some places they could also combine with solar too, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think in fact, I mean, my preference is to combine it. I mean, I don't see that there's this huge one or the other. I think solar and wind, they complement each other extremely well, with some battery backup, basically, to become grid independent. So I do see a lot of synergies between the two. But of course, there's climates with little wind and with lots of solar, lots of sunshine, where we just simply can't compete against solar. But then there's other climates where you have a lot of wind, you have a lot of cloud cover, You may have long winters. You have restricted space, and that's where solar can compete against wind. So it all depends basically. But again, the combination of both is always a good thing.
Yeah, but like I mean, the beautiful thing is that we're figuring out as we evolve, right, as human beings, and we find out new technology and how to exploit all the resources, because this is a resource that has not been exploited before that well. So we're getting there, hopefully with your help, my friend. But there's a tool for every task. There's a hammer for the nail. There's like everything for each thing. So that's great that we're able to evolve, but find out like how can we use something as like normal and natural as wind to make energy. And I mean, it's amazing. It's so amazing. Before we keep going and talking about the all the aspects of the wind turbine and stuff and the business itself, let's tap into your amazing knowledge, my friend, in business. I want you to help my audience here. We're small business owners. We're you've been in these businesses that started like small, got to 250 employees, and freaking went public, bought from another. Like, you've done it all, man. So please help us out. So you are an expert in workflows and many other things in business processes. How important are business processes and workflows for any business? Tell my audience here.
Well, I mean, the thing is, when you start up a business, people typically don't care about workflow and processes, right? And you can do that. You can do that up to a certain size, right? But there is a point, and I think every industry has their different sort of turning points where without the processes in place, you just can't scale and grow anymore. Everything gets too chaotic. When you're 5 employees, you just wing it, right? And then a lot of people wing it maybe until 50 employees, but then it kind of it drags. But then once you have structures and levels of responsibilities, you've got to have a process in place and a handbook and a workflow basically. And without that, and I have to admit, I'm probably not sort of the person in the businesses I've created that focused most on sort of the documenting workflows and sort of the administrative process. And I've been more on the client side most of the time. But as in every business, you surround yourself with people that have basically that skill set and that talent. And so that's the key, that you complement each other, just like solar hopefully complements wind in some of those installations. But in a business, it's key that you engage with the right partners and you complement each other basically. And so that's the key, because you reach a certain point where you can't grow anymore without having all those processes in place. For us, I think our tipping point was like around revenue-wise, probably around 7 or 8 million. We just figured out now we got to really put procedures in place that people follow. We got to have people reporting to people other than us, and there have to be responsibilities, and there have to be evaluations and reviews of people, and a process of how to set their compensation based upon performance. Without that in place, you just can't wing it anymore. It gets too much. And I had at the time a wonderful business partner who really looked into all those things, whereas I was looking more into like the client side and making sure we deliver what the clients want.
Right. No, but that's, and we'll tap into that too. So you give us some advice there in the client side.
Right.
So, but finishing up that topic of the processes and stuff, when do you think, like, for small business, like it's prudential to start developing at least some processes, maybe basic, but when do you think it's the right time to start?
Well, it's never too early to start thinking about it, right? It's probably, if you're just looking at developing a product or something you want to sell to clients at the very beginning, you don't want to be too proceduralized because it's kind of slowing you down, right?
Yeah.
What you want to do is obviously focus on your clients and focus on your product and your service offerings, and also getting the right people on board. And you typically have a very flat structure at the very beginning. So, I would probably caution when you're super small at the very beginning to be too, proceduralized. But then, thinking about it, how you're going to scale and then put those procedures in place, it can never be too early, because you got to be ready when you hit that point. When you start growing, I mean, we've experienced growing pains, obviously, because at some point you land some larger deals and things just go up exponentially, and then you can't handle it anymore without the processes in place. And so, again, I wouldn't implement too early at the very early stages, but thinking about it and having it ready is key.
Yeah. Because like it's like how can you, like, everything, right? I think this is the biggest thing when business owners want to get rid of being self-employed, that hat of self-employed, on actually having a team. The biggest thing is like how do I give them everything that I know so they can train and all of these things. But the lack of processes is the biggest problem when you are in that transition, because with the
right.
Like you think
it's that transition also where you shouldn't be pulling all the shots anymore. You have to empower people with responsibilities to pull the shots in their respective area. If every business decision goes through your desk, you just can't function anymore, basically. So, and again, it works at the very beginning, but it won't work in the long run.
Yeah.
So you got to have people that you trust and that you also empower to make those decisions for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have to, probably if you're a small business, and because I hear a lot of suggestions that people that have big companies or something tell other small companies, and they would be like, why don't you like hire a superstar? But when you're a small business, you can't hire a superstar. I mean, it's unrealistic. Right?
It depends. I mean, if you offer a service or a product that is inspiring, and you offer those people equity, basically, right? And say, hey, look, if we make this a success, I can't pay you a salary that maybe the corporate America does, but I can basically give you an incentive where you can make more money down the road if the thing becomes successful. And also, some people just don't like corporate structures. They feel they're in a little pocket in their corporate world, and they love to go into a small business where they have a much wider span of responsibilities. And they can be part of something that's being created from the very get-go. So there is quite a few people, even like, as you call them, superstars, that just are tired of the corporate world. I'm not a corporate citizen either that just follows sort of processes to the teeth. It's just not my thing. But everybody has their talents, right? And everybody has their preferences and inspirations. And so, you can find those people that want to get away from the bureaucratic, corporate American world into more of an entrepreneurial world where they have more cloud on what they do. And so we did actually find some really, really good people in the very early stages. Now, nowadays, I mean, obviously nobody's available to do anything at the moment. Although I still believe, even in a labor market that's been unprecedented over since World War II, right? That you just can't find people. Even there, if you have the right inspiring product or service, or the business idea that people like, you will eventually find the superstars who join you. So any labor market, you can find the right people under the right conditions. Basically, I have no doubt.
Man, that is like amazing, incredible advice. I've never thought of that. I'm learning a lot. I just took a note of that. And guys, this is why I bring you these business players, because they've done it, and they all have different input in things. Like, I'm glad that I was asking this question, because they weren't even here. Like, these questions weren't even here. So I asked this amazing guy this question, which is a good question, right? Like the level that if you ask good questions, you're gonna get good answers. And he just gave us like an amazing answer that will probably help me, and I hope it helps you. But how do you get superstars? Like, if you don't have money to pay them a lot or whatever, he just answered it, and I've been looking for that answer. But that's why
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. You were cutting out for a second. Say it again.
No, I'm saying, like, that's why our audience here, they want to learn from people like you. Like, they've done it, and they're super smart people, and they find a way on how to achieve things, even though it's not usually the way it's been done before.
Right, right. So I mean, the only thing I would add on to that, I mean, finding superstars, yes, it's possible, and you do want to obviously surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I mean, they're like, if you're afraid of hiring somebody who is better than you at certain things, then you will never succeed, and you limit yourself to your own skills, right? But if you can bring people in that are, you know, better in many aspects or in their specialty areas than you are, and can do certain things better than you, and are possibly smarter than you, but you can inspire them to be part of that business, right? Then that makes the success, basically, right? And you don't limit yourself to your own sort of capabilities, because you can't be a jack of all trades at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You have to bring people in that are better than you in many ways.
Yeah, man, I love it. And people here, I don't know if you can see it here, Hagen, but they're saying, Jose, thank you for this opportunity to meet incredible people. Guys, you can leave comments. If you're on Instagram, we're not going to see them, unfortunately, because it doesn't allow to see it on Instagram. But we're there with you on Instagram, and we all love you. So, man, this is amazing advice. Thank you so much, dude. Now, let's get into something that is more like your thing, which is the customer side. What would you what would you recommend a small business, because this is our audience, small businesses or people that they are just starting or want to start a business? What would you recommend, Hagen, for them when it comes to like the customer side of the business? What should they be looking out for at this early stage they're in?
Right. Well, I mean, certainly before you start a business, you most likely had some thoughts and what's the problem you're trying to solve with the service or the product you're offering, right? And if there's not a known problem, but maybe a sort of an unconscious problem, you basically can create a demand by sort of explaining, hey, why things could be better with your product or service. But I guess all that happens typically before you start your business. So you're out there to basically tackle a problem that your customers have, right? And you know, I've seen business entrepreneurs who are too focused on just the operational side and not so much on it. The number one thing is always at the very beginning to solve the customer's problem, right?
Yeah.
What's the service they need? What's the product they would desire? And how can you help them, with your product or service to feel better about it? And if that's the side that you neglect, then, I guess, I've seen businesses that just procedurally just tag along, but the really good businesses, they focus on that initially. Of course, again, as we said earlier, you've got to be ready to implement the internal procedures as you grow. And perhaps that's an area where I'm probably not the best, but I surround myself, if you grow a business, with people who would do that, basically the operational side. So my passion is solving client problems, is going out there and convincing people of what we're doing versus executing internally. There's people who love to do that. So again, it's all about a combination of people you bring into a business, right?
Yeah.
You hardly find people who are jacks of all trades, right? And that's why it's so important that you understand what is your talent, what is your strength, and what are the skill sets you got to bring in to be successful.
So going back to the basics, pretty much the fundamentals are always the same, and they're always key to succeed in business. I think that's what Hagen is saying, is like always care about the pain of the client. And I think I've been able to develop new products and new solutions and stuff like that because I've been looking out for their pains. But if you just concentrate on just like in our case, it's web design. If you just concentrate on the web design and not really on what the web design like solves for these people, I think you can find new solutions, right, Hagen?
Well, that's exactly true. I mean, you when you develop a website or when you do a web design project or anything, e-commerce, you always got to have in mind what your customer is trying to achieve with it.
Yeah.
How does it benefit his business? If you think about what you like the most and what's the sexiest looking type of design, but it doesn't really hit the mark with your customer solving their problem, it's still not gonna really be successful at the end of the day, right? And so that, so that was kind of, we developed our product also with Japan in mind. They had a specific need. Unfortunately, we came too late for that specific in Japan because they changed legislation. The development took us too long. But then we found, well, there's a lot of other countries that can have offsite wind turbines that have the wind conditions that are required for that, and that are looking for a product like that. So we didn't let it go to waste. But again, we did develop it for a certain need to solve a certain problem at the time.
Yeah, but the pain will guide you to develop better development. Like, actually, what is it that it's needed? And I think it will like open your mind, because if you think like, oh, I'm a web developer, in my case, right? Oh, I just do websites. You're never gonna see the bigger spectrum of things where you're like, man, I think the website is obsolete. I'm gonna create this other new thing that is gonna improve. It's gonna be way better, and it's gonna solve once and for all, or a lot better than what the website does right now, this a specific problem that they're all having, business owners, right, in general, in my case. And in your case, it's the wind turbine and all the other stuff you've done.
Right. And obviously, part of our IT businesses in the past was exactly the same thing. You can't just, design a solution that looks good, but it has to really hit the mark with the customer and how to improve their business. And I think web design and web development is obviously a different type of business, right? Design is part of the development, but if you just look at the design only, you can't be solving the solutions that the customer needs, basically.
Totally. So. Oh yeah, completely, man. Completely. No, I've learned, and like I guess we all take those things for granted, or we assume we're making, like, we know them, and we assume we know them enough, and we assume that we're applying them, but it all comes to the basics, and then we realize, like, man, I haven't been doing this or taking this into full consideration in all aspects. And then you're like, man, it's all the basics, like it's always, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, so how important are these things like workflows, processes, and now we're talking about finding the customer's pain and solving it, which ultimately is pretty much the most important thing in customer service, right? Which is one of the biggest things you've done in your career. How important are those things for companies?
Well, I mean, they're all important. Again, if you're just starting up and you're developing a solution for a customer, you have your first large customer, your processes in your back office, they probably suck because they're just not established yet, right? And so you just focus on, well, this is our lifetime opportunity. This is a big customer. We try to do the best job we can for this customer. And if you do that and the customer is happy and it solves their problem, then the processes will eventually fall in place. Now, if the processes are so bad in the background that you can't execute and you can't really satisfy the customer's needs, then of course it will bog you down. But if you're in a startup mode with just a handful of people, you could probably wing it, and after that you have the opportunity to establish those processes to grow from there on, basically. I mean, when I sold my company, I found we were already at like 240 people at the time, but we went into a much larger corporation, and there's a lot more processes to follow, and it just reminded me that why I left corporate America in the first place, because I'm not the person that's born to just follow processes and procedures and basically manage a P&L with like 5% growth every year. I have a different personality, and obviously my personality doesn't fit into every corporate culture, but at the same time I have inspirations that made me successful in the way I'm operating. So again, it comes back to the key. You got to understand your own weaknesses and your own strength, right? My weaknesses are probably I don't have a lot of passion for following procedures and processes, and that's just not my strength. But I have other strength in delivering on visionary projects, basically. And so you got to focus on those type of things where you think you're strong, and then again let be surrounded with people who can take care of the other things that you feel you're weak or you don't have a passion for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if you like Robert Kiyosaki, Hagen. Have you read any of his books?
I glanced through them. I think I read like a book summary.
Okay, dude. So he in his second book, which is Cash Flow Quadrant. I think I've mentioned this like so many videos now, but
Actually, you did mention it to me when we were in Miami at the time as well, I believe.
I think so because I was going through it, and he says in that book that what a business is people, right? Like you're saying, people,
Right.
but it's not just people; it's processes. It's people and processes. But you can't forget about either the people or the processes, because
Yes.
it's like McDonald's. They have a really good process, and which can be used by almost anyone. But of course, it would be a lot better. McDonald's would be probably a lot better if they had better people. Maybe, I don't know. And not saying that the people at McDonald's is bad.
McDonald's is a very good example of a very rigid process, but without that process, it would be chaos basically, right? You wouldn't get that sort of that continuous sort of like this wherever you go, they're supposed to taste the same way, just like the Starbucks model. And if you don't have those procedures in place, you don't get that consistency, and that's what people are asking for with going to those brands. So yeah, but it's obviously a very different model. I mean, somebody had a great vision and they executed to the teeth with those processes, and they made it a worldwide success basically, right? So there's other businesses where I guess the vision eventually comes back to execution. As you reach a certain size, you have to have processes in place. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but like they're all important, but like I believe that I mean, I'm not inside of these big huge companies and stuff, but for example, you see American Express. I think it's a great example for good people, like having good people in place, because of course there are things that even if you have good processes, how can you make people be happy and these things, and that you can't fake that. Like you call American Express and they're like great service and all these things. It's because I believe they're good people already in that position, and they like it's not a process only thing.
Well,
right?
it's a company culture. So building processes doesn't automatically give you the culture of like inspiration, happiness, positive outlook. You could still have like a backstabbing negative culture, even though you have a lot of processes defined. So building company culture, I would almost see like, again, you got to have a good process, or a good process in place to execute. You got to have a great vision for your product and services you offer. But if you can't build an inspirational and positive company culture, then that's gonna eventually erode your processes and your ability to execute as well, because you won't attract good people. Good people will leave. People won't perform well, and so building a culture is just another leg that you can't neglect in a business.
Yeah, and I think Hagen, he's not just like he doesn't. He's not like super passionate about processes and stuff, because he's an innovator. Like he is a creative person, because that's how he's able to create.
Well, no, I appreciate the need for processes. I'm just realizing it's not,
yes,
and therefore it's probably not my forte either. But I completely 100% appreciate the need for that to be in place to be successful, right? And so I just surround myself with people who take care of that task, and not leave it up to me basically, because it probably wouldn't be the best solution. And my inspiration is somewhere else basically. So again, you just have to understand where your passions are. Now, creating a positive company culture, that's obviously that's a very difficult thing. American Express, I agree. Actually, whenever you talk out, they're super professional. They build a great culture, right? And you see, like even between airlines, you see some of them have a better and more positive cultures, others don't, right? And it makes a huge difference, And McDonald's, obviously, with franchises, it's a little more difficult, because the culture of a franchise is within the owner of that franchise. And McDonald's can have very tight processes, but if the manager of that franchise, is just a negative person and hires, people with attitudes, then the customer just won't get what they expect, even though the processes and the taste of the product is in place, basically, right?
Totally. And no, I wasn't saying that you don't care about it. I was saying like your passion is somewhere else. And the tip that you gave, like get people that they do want to do those things and they are better doing those things. That is the best advice. So Hagen has a rich team because he gives it to like each task and each position to the person that really wants to do it and that they will do the best job because they have experience, they're superstars, and he's a superstar in this other aspect that of course is like super important, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the talents I noticed on myself, and I think as an entrepreneur, you gotta be able to identify where your strengths and weaknesses are. And one of my strengths is to basically put all those pieces together. You know, look at all the different aspects that need to come together, and putting those pieces together, those pieces of the puzzle, that's my strength. Not so much in executing each piece of that puzzle and on its own.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're a small business owner, like you're just starting stuff, you really have to know your strengths and your weaknesses because that's something I fell in. I fell there, man, and I admit it because I was like, really, really good. I am really, really good at sales and stuff, but I was trying to get that away from me, not because I didn't want to do it, but because I thought that was a good move to like remove some independence, to have more make the business more independent of me in the sales part. I thought that was a good move, but I didn't understand that if I did that, then I'm not using my biggest strengths in my business, so I'm not leveraging my talent doing the things because it's harder for someone else to do it. But I can find someone else that it will be really good for another position, which I'm also doing, but I try to do that, and that, we had some bad months because of that. So, yeah.
Right.
Yes. No, man, I love this. This is great. Just thank you for being here. It's amazing. This question is gonna make you think, man. So if you could mention one thing, Hagen, where most business owners screwed up when it comes to the things that you're really good at, what do you think that one would be? Like only one thing.
So the one thing that most business owners screw up in terms of the overall, I mean, I guess the number one screw up is to get in business with the wrong people. I mean, surrounding yourself, if you are mismatched in your way of thinking, if you're just different personalities, and you think, well, because you involved in some similar industry, you just get together and set up a business. It's a recipe for disaster. It's almost like the most important decision you make in life is who you marry at the end of the day, right? And so in business, it's like who you go in business with. If you have the wrong business partner, you can't stand it at the end of the day.
Shit, yeah, that's huge, man. I'm sure. Wow.
And we all went through our learning experiences in that way, so nobody's immune from that. But if you ask me for the number one screw up, that's what happens.
Wow. Thank you, man. Thank you for that. And now, let's go back to your business. You already told us a lot about it, but so tell us how can we help you to keep developing the turbines, to start producing them? What can we do to support the cost, the venture, the company, or how can we invest? How can we do something with your company?
Sure. I mean, right now we're in talks with parties who want to basically be part of the business. I mean, we're basically equity owned. So again, we don't have loans to external, lenders. We would love to keep it that way. We're looking for a strategic partner.
Mm-hmm.
We need one more partnership investment where a strategic partner could not only bring the financial needs for, basically, establishing the production capabilities and the production assets and all that, but also, shares the same passion, and hopefully a network in that space, renewable energy and potentially on-site renewable energy, that can help us basically with the market rollout. or experience in sales and marketing of renewable energy products. Those type of things where we have a synergy. We can not only receive the funds necessary to establish production, but also to work with a partner or a partner company that helps us into certain markets or helps us, identify certain markets, the right markets, and things like that. So we're looking for basically a strategic partner. That's sort of the definition of it. I think we have some, as you know, we probably have some good conversations already with some interested partners, and so we'll see what happens. But as soon as that has happened, we probably have about a 9 to 12 months window until we can basically serial produce the wind turbines with our manufacturing partners and get them out to the customers. We're not selling product at the moment because before you have all this, again, this comes back to processes, quality assurance and all that. Those are things that have to be taken care of. Again, I appreciate those processes. I'm just not the one who will eventually manage them, but they're super important because it is a product that has to be manufactured in an 100% quality way. Otherwise, it could even be dangerous. Just like many products, if they're not high quality, they could cause harm, and so we want to make sure that that's all taken care of.
Completely. And this persona for to help you guys to get to the next level, it's more of a person or is more of a company?
It could be either way. Okay. So it could be an organization that has footprints all around the world in renewable energy, or it could be somebody who just establishes a sort of a symbiotic business like the one we obviously we're talking about when you were in Miami, and so there's all kind of scenarios where we could benefit from each other, and I think that's the type of partnership we're looking at.
Awesome. And I'm gonna share the screen so everyone sees this because it's amazing. Let me share with you guys what we are talking about, because of course it wouldn't I mean it would suck to not show you. That would be a
do you want to click on the video section?
Okay, let me go there. Yeah, videos, promo video. Let's see.
Yeah, exactly that one. If you run that one, you can actually.
This is the action, guys. Watch this.
Today we're going to introduce a very new product, which is an innovative new vertical access wind turbine. People deploy those products close to the point of usage at schools, at warehouses, at small communities.
From the very first beginning, I thought these guys are inventing something which could change the world.
And now through different manufacturing techniques and material processes, we have the ability to take an idea that was good on its surface 50 years ago and now take it and innovate it and turn it into something else.
So we definitely want to incorporate a very simple design using the latest technology to make it efficient, make it easy to maintain. We use a lot of standard materials on the market. We outfitted our mast with a tilt system that comes down. A single guy with a pickup truck can come out and maintain his wind turbine. There's people that need power that can't get power, and I believe that this turbine can really fit that mold perfectly. It's small, reliable, but it works and it looks nice and people can get close to it. And so we're closer to people by nature. That means it has to be something people like. People don't want to put anything in their backyard if they don't like it. We developed a project people are raving about. Everybody who sees our wind turbine wants one, basically. And that's a product that's not just aesthetically pleasing, so people want it, but it's also functional and solid.
They have a good concept, they have good people, they are good and well-experienced businessmen, and that is, from our point of view, the most important issue to become a successful story for this project. I mean, when I look at a wind turbine spinning, I see freedom.
We're going to be a pioneer with a vertical axis wind turbine in this class, being internationally certified, and we can basically go to any country in the world with that certification. We're extremely happy with the outcome, especially with all people's feedback that come out raving whenever they see our product.
And therefore, I'm very proud to be part of this team and very much hope that we will bring that to a great success for all of us on this platform.
The art of wind power. Woo! Oh man, that's so awesome.
Haven't seen that clip in a while, but I enjoy it every time.
No, it's a great clip, man. It's a great clip. You gotta give me the number of the guy who made the clip. That's great.
Absolutely.
And
He's right here in Miami, a friend of mine.
no, he did a great job. And you see, guys, this is the level of engineering, of amazingness that this product is. Like it really is. Like it's incredible. And I was there, and I looked at it, and I was standing next to it, and it was amazing. But I mean, it's hard to express because it's not the same as being there. But it really is a piece of art and something that I know that will change the world when once it start being massively produced and stuff. That's gonna be amazing. I can't wait to see my friend here like hitting that milestone. That's gonna be huge, man. Yes, that's gonna be excellent.
Appreciate the feedback, Jose.
Oh man, it's incredible. So what do you say, my friend?
I certainly appreciate your passion for it. That's awesome.
Oh no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and like there was a part of the video that someone said. I don't know if it was you, but oh yeah, it was you. You said like everyone that sees it, they want one. Like
yeah,
I mean,
that was a very modest statement, I guess. But I mean, we do have a lot of people who stop by and like it, and so I might have a little exaggerated, but there's actually people even down in Florida where we don't have the wind supporting that type of products, where people asking, hey, when are you going to sell it? I want one down there on my property a couple of miles down the road. But we tell them, look, in Florida you can't justify a wind turbine because you just don't have the sustained annual winds. You're much better off just doing solar in Florida. Now it's a very different ballgame if you go to the Caribbean, which is not far from here, where you have sustained annual trade winds and you got high power cost and often limited space for solar, and that's where wind makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But even then, like man, there's countries that, for example, like I'm from Venezuela. For the ones who don't know, but we would like send electricity to, I don't know how that's done, but like to Cuba to help Cuba. So I mean, people in the future will have we'll figure it out. Like it's gonna.
There's some regions in Cuba that have good winds as well. So and there's some parts of Venezuela with good winds. So there's many countries in Latin America that have good areas of wind, mostly coastal or in certain like mountainous areas. But there's a lot of good hotspots. And if you go south, like Argentina, Chile, it's super windy down there.
Oh yeah. So I can see how all the world. I mean, who knows how the fuck that's gonna happen? But I can see how the world like could help each other. Where hey, we have this. We're badass, and we have the perfect geographic stuff to do it like a farm of wind turbines, and that could sustain all these other countries. And then I help you this other way. It's hard because like there's so many different intentions and stuff like in the world, but I mean that could be one thing in the future where everyone actually help each other in the world and we're all good in something, and that's kind of happening already, but not in the way that it could be, But your product, man, will
that's the way it's supposed to be, right?
What do you say?
That's the way it's supposed to be, that we're all helping each other and we all have complementary skills and products and services. Unfortunately, it's not always that way in the world nowadays, but that's what it's supposed to be. I agree with you.
Yeah. Hopefully one day, it's gonna like start happening and the other countries will follow, and that would be awesome. But man, so we're almost gonna be done here, man. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been an hour.
Appreciate you showing our clip and promoting our product. I totally appreciate that, Jose, and I definitely look forward to seeing you again in Miami on your next trip.
Oh, dude, of course, and I am looking forward to having another episode with you in the future. Once you guys launch everything and you're in production and you're like, you're probably gonna have a crown, like a golden crown, or something like the Wind King. The Wind King.
It is. In the wind business, a lot of people tell me in the wind business it's good to have a bald head because you don't have the issue of like standing right next to a wind turbine, the hair blowing all over the place. A lot of people struggle with that because you basically gravitate to areas where you have a lot of wins, and I don't struggle with that anymore. So
you see, man, it's destiny, dude. It's destiny. You have to be doing this. No, that's funny, man. This guy, he's got
I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Oh yeah, totally. So my friend, so we're getting to the part where we give these guys the like super quick and really good advice, our audience, right? So what are the next goals for Hagen and Javawind?
Well, so our goals are to basically go in production, and as soon as we have found that right strategic partner to go in production with, basically, that's when we start executing. And so from then on, as I said earlier, will be about 9 to 12 months till we can actually churn out product. So that's the stage we're in at the moment. So we're kind of on hold. Well, like I wouldn't say on hold, but we're kind of in a holding pattern until we settle that, and then once production is established, that's when product will be sold.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen, man. It's gonna happen. Now, if you could go back in time, Hagen, when you started your business, it could be this one, or it could be when you started like way back, and you had all this knowledge that you now have. What would you have done differently?
Oh gosh, you mean in Javawind specifically, or overall with my life? I mean, there's a lot of things that you would obviously do better. I don't think I have a huge regret. Not even like when I was in this more like those controversial energy technologies. Again, when I put a lot of my money in that didn't materialize, but again, I don't think it was lost money. There's a lot of valuable information that was learned out of those projects, and even though you attract some hate towards you that by doing things like that, but it was a journey that was worthwhile at the end of the day. So I don't have any regrets. Of course, knowing what I know today, I would have probably put my money into different projects that may have resulted. You obviously. You go through a learning experience and you fund projects that are not yielding the results you had hoped for. And so in hindsight, you do a lot of things differently. But regret, I wouldn't say I have a lot of regret in any of that.
Yeah, no. So it's more about how, because they're starting, right? So it would be super useful and helpful for them to know this is what Hagen went through. How can I know it's not perfect, but how can I avoid some of the mistakes that our friend Hagen did,
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had a few technical challenges that we had to reiterate. We had to make retrofits that took us back quite some time, of course, but you can't predict them from the very beginning, right? So had we maybe brought other people in, maybe we would have avoided some of those mistakes. But that's easy to say in hindsight, right? It's like having a product out, a car company releasing a product that has recalls. Those things just happen. It's in hindsight, you always know better, right? But I mean, fundamentally, I don't think I regret any of those decisions overall. So eventually we'll get this into production, and it will serve its purpose, and so that there's no regret.
Oh man, no, that's great. I don't regret anything either, man. It has been tough, man. It's been super difficult. When I started doing the first year, I was like, I'm gonna hit $150,000 a month, and I pushed really hard to get there, but I haven't done it yet in 3 years. So there's a lot of things like you have to have in place. Like you said, we thought it was gonna be 3 years, now it's 6 years. So it's yeah.
The thing is, you will always make mistakes as long as you learn from them and you make it better next time. That's all. But you can't regret making mistakes. Without the mistakes, you don't learn. And so, there's no need for regret unless you made some really, really stupid decisions. I mean, and everybody makes those. But again, that's part of life. That's part of learning.
Yeah, like stupid mistakes, like those types of stupid mistakes he talks about is like you got money from an investor, like $1 million, and you came to Las Vegas and you played blackjack with me, and then we spent all the money.
That wouldn't be stupid, that would be criminal, actually.
That's like super, super criminal and stupid. My friend, now best three business books that you would recommend our audience. Best three business books.
Oh, best three business books. I mean, there's obviously, there's such a big variety of business books out there, but I personally, I'm not so much into books, but the Harvard Review is to me a very helpful tool to see what the latest trends are. So I'm going into that, and I'm a lot on the Bloomberg side, basically looking at markets. That's kind of my thing, but in terms of personal development, that actually translates into business success. It's a very old book. You may have not heard of it, but it's Stephen Covey, basically, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
And I can only, and you did okay.
Yeah,
so
it's an amazing book.
I remember I was like in my 20s when I first read that book, and it does help you not just establishing for viewpoints for business, but also for your personal life. So I can only recommend that book.
Beautiful. Yeah. My father-in-law was the one that recommended me that book. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I promise I'm gonna read it. And then there's so many books. Like I got a bunch of books. There's books here. There's book everywhere, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great book. Everyone watching this, go buy that book. It's amazing. And the last question, my friend, thank you so much. God bless you for being here. You're the best, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time. Everyone say in the comments, thank you. Oh, they're already saying thank you, man. They're saying thank you so much for the amazing information and some rockets, emojis and stuff. Thank you, guys.
Right.
And we've had people here. Thank you also for being there's people that have been throughout the entire thing. Thank you so much for being here. If you could only pick 3 things, my friend, what would be the best 3 tips that you would give to a new entrepreneur?
I think I would just summarize what I said earlier. Get with the right people, focus on your customers, and be ready with your processes for growth once that comes, but don't be too hung up on that at the very beginning.
Got it. So get with the right people. Then what you said?
Focus on your clients.
Focus on your clients.
And be ready with the right processes once you hit that mark.
Beautiful, because you can't scale otherwise, right?
Well, you can't scale, exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much, Hagen. Again, guys, leave thank you in the comments. Lots of hearts and love for my friend here, and for having it's not all the time where we have an innovator, big player, has achieved big success in other ventures, companies, has done a lot of things, investor too, in different not just I'm sure, I mean, he's done so many things, but he's invested in other people's companies and projects and all these things and things that probably no one else would invest in because he's an expert of, but all of that, it's amazing, and we have the pleasure to have him here. So thank you so much, man. Woo! I had a great time, man. Thank you so much. So guys, God bless you all, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Hagen. Don't leave yet, man. Don't leave yet. We're chit chat a little bit, not too much.